Hey folks, and welcome back. I've got something a little bit different for you today. Now, if you've been following the channel for a little while, you may have seen my earlier review of Next Level Miniatures. Now, if you haven't, I'll link it in the description below. But spoilers, I really liked them. In fact, I liked them so much that after the review, every time I was shopping in a place that had them, I would throw one into the cart. They're only a couple of bucks, and they're fun to paint. In fact, every time I bought one, I found that I was painting it up first thing. It became kind of my off model for whatever other project I was working on for the channel. I would be working on that behind the scenes. To the point where I've got quite a little collection of Next Level Minis now. Now, because of that, I reached out to Next Level Miniatures to, see if they had anything new going on, to see if there was anything they wanted to show you guys, and well, my good timing held out, and they had just wrapped up late pledging on a Kickstarter campaign, so pretty awful timing, actually. But nonetheless, they did have something, and they've sent something along for us to take a look at today. That is where I got my hands on this. This is a Next Level Encounters box. According to the packaging, there are 18 minis inside, bases for the minis, and a booklet with RP hooks and information about what to do with them in an encounter. Now, I haven't opened it up yet. I don't really know what's in here. We're going to have a look together. Let's dive in. So Next Level makes several of these encounter kits in different themes. There's a tavern set, a ruined keep, a sewer set, a haunted manor, and this one here, the Stitcher's Workshop. Now, just based on the name and theme, I think we're looking at a sort of a fantasy Dr. Frankenstein setup. And not that the original Frankenstein wasn't fantasy, but you know what I mean. Anyway. Notably, some of the minis in this box do require assembly, which I hadn't seen on Next Level minis before, but there's nothing really major. The Ghast you see here requires his head glued on, and the big Undead Reaper you see later on has to have his wings put on him. But that's it. There are a good assortment of minis in the box, and it's clear that it's all themed as a single encounter, in addition to some basic enemy types. Some really neat zombies that look very obviously stitched together from different people and maybe even some bits of monsters. There's a Ghast, some props and scenery like corpse piles and grasping zombie hand traps, and some henchmen, a kind of Igor-looking fellow with a big sack of harvested body parts slung over his back, and a creepy prisoner with a sack on his head. And of course, the Stitcher himself. A mad doctor who is covered in vials and potions. It's a very cool take on the Frankenstein idea, but gone medieval fantasy, and also just a great set of unique minis to round out your collection of undead and creeps in general. The quality of the minis themselves is quite good. The designs are fun, the lines are crisp, and they have enough detail to be interesting, without bogging you down in painting 1,000 tiny little details. As I mentioned in my last review, for me, they very much hit the sweet spot between the level of detail and how fun they are to paint. Some of the mini designs do double up in this set. There are 2 types of each zombie, 2 corpse piles, 2 creepy skin suits. Delightful. To me, that's not an issue at all, as creating a horde of zombies without doubles is a lot to ask, but it seems worth mentioning. The encounter guide that comes with the set is more like a bit of a primer on mood and how to use the minis. It gives you a few bits of grim dialogue that you can drop in, some suggestions on how to work the encounter into your campaign, and a handful of combat scenarios without any statistics. It's good, and it's a nice bonus that rounds out the set, but don't expect something on the level of an Epic Encounters box. Of course, what's a review without actually working with minis? I picked out the Ghast for this section, though honestly it wasn't an easy choice. They're all things I'm pretty excited to paint. Because of the molds used and the thermoplastic injection process, there are some mold lines on the Mini. Now these can largely be scraped off with a knife, though on some models it's going to be trickier than others. The plastic is somewhat soft, so you'll want to be careful doing this, both in trying not to cut yourself and in trying not to leave any texture behind on the Mini. I primed black with a rattle can primer because I want to stick with really cold tones for the skin, and black is a good place to start for that. With something that's supposed to be undead, I want it to look like the flesh is cold and lifeless, which means staying away from warm colors completely. I work up the black with a dark blue-gray. That will require 2 thin coats to go on smoothly and to cover the black. I don't worry too much about overspill at this point. I mean, try to work neat if you can, but if you get paint somewhere it shouldn't be, it doesn't really matter. The physique and details of the face and skin are really well defined on the sculpt, so it's not at all difficult to just start working up in lighter shades of blue-gray. Now, each time you move to a lighter color, you want to cover a little bit less of the Mini, keeping the highlights more and more to the top-facing areas where the light would be hitting and making them brighter. Now, this is called volumetric highlighting, and it's part of what things like contrast paints try to emulate. I did 4 layers of progressively lighter tones on the skin, which landed me with a result that looks like this. And from there, I watered down a blue-gray paint until it was quite thin and ran it over the entire surface of the skin. Now, this is called glazing, and it's a way to blend all of those highlights together. When talking about miniature painting, one word that you'll hear a lot is contrast. That can mean a lot of things. Usually what miniature painters mean is the big one, contrast between light and dark, the thing that's going to make your minis pop the most. But that's not the only way to bring contrast to your project. Another way is with the difference between warm and cold colors. I pointed out earlier that I wanted the skin of this ghast to look really dead and cold, and it does. But one way to pump that up and bring more attention to it is by surrounding it in warm colors. So all of his tattered robes are going to be in really warm hues to make it stand out more that his skin is so frigid looking. All of the robes get a really simple solution, and this technique is something that works great on next level minis and is part of why they're just so fun and easy to paint. I do a single color, a single wash, and once it's dry, a single highlight. That's it, that's all. It's fast, it's easy, and the sculpts on these minis are done with nice, deep recesses that work really well with those techniques. Once the robes have their singular highlight, that basically just leaves the details. That big gross tongue gets the same treatment the skin did, but in pink. Progressive layers of highlights to the top-facing areas. The eyes get dotted with white and then red to make them pop against the blue skin, and the teeth get an off-white and then a brown wash. Which brings us to okay, so in the end, what do I actually think about the Next Level Encounters box? Well, when it comes to judging minis, there's basically 4 things that I look at. The first one is just the quality of the mini itself, of the sculpt and of the material. Are these on par with their direct competitors? And their direct competitors in this case would be things like WizKids or Reaper, those sorts of companies who are making tabletop specific products and generally aiming for this same market share. And the answer is yes. In fact, I would take Next Level Miniatures over Reaper or WizKids any day of the week. Is there a huge difference? No, not really. And sure, the Next Level Minis are a little bit harder to clean up with the type of plastic that they use, but ultimately, I like the details better, I like the level of detail better, and I like the crispness of those details better. So that makes it an easy choice for me. Next Level wins out in that category. The next thing that I would usually look at is, are they fun to paint? Do I have a good time painting them? As simple as that. And yes, that is incredibly subjective. But For me, the answer is self-evident. Whenever I buy a next level miniature, it gets painted really quickly. Usually the night it arrives, I start working on it. They're cool, I like them, they're fun and easy to paint. It's fast to do, and you end up with a good looking final product without a crazy amount of effort. So yeah, they're fun to paint. Third category, and this one's pretty intangible, is just, are they cool? Is there something about the mini that makes me go, oh yeah, I want to paint that? And yeah, often there are. Is every single mini in this set one that, makes me really excited to paint it and really leaps out at me? No. There's one or two that I'm not too fussed about, and that's going to happen anytime you get a big set of miniatures like that. But overall, there are a lot of them I really like, and I think the vast majority of them are going to get painted up really quickly. Alright, on to the fourth and final thing, and this is a big one for me, and it's probably a big one for some of you. And that's price. How are they priced in comparison to those direct competitors like WizKids and Reaper? Well, this box has 18 miniatures in it, as well as the bases and the encounter guide. Now, personally, I like things like the encounter guide. I think they're cool. They give you a peek into how someone else views these minis and some extra ideas about what they might be used for. But on the off chance that you're not interested in that, let's just set that aside. So that leaves you with 18 miniatures and bases for the ones that need them. How much is that going to run you? It's $30. $30 for the entire set. That's less than $2 a miniature. That is an insanely low price for miniatures of this quality, and is not something you're going to find easy to beat from any of the competing companies. Price is fantastic for what you're getting. So, altogether, you're left with really cool miniatures that have that wow factor, that coolness to them. They are specific to tabletop games and represent enemies and creatures that can be hard to find in other miniature lines, and they're incredibly affordable. So yes, I definitely highly recommend this product, and there are other sets out there with other themes from Next Level that you can go to their website and check them out. Go have a look. It's definitely worth your time, definitely worth checking out. That said, I've got like 15 more miniatures to paint still, so thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Gonna get back to work.